can use a segment from your show to help people understand better. You take wildly complex issues like the UFLPA, and you do a series of forced labor commentary from people who are experts. And I think it's driving value.
Before we get started with the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Global Training Center. As trade compliance professionals, you want to make sure that your procedures and documentation are completed as correctly as possible to avoid any delays and possible fines. We provide a range of trade compliance courses that will fit your needs. From in-person or web training to recorded on-demand courses, we can train one or even thousands on your team through your learning platform or on our portal. We can even customize a private session for your team. Go to globaltrainingcenter.com to find out more.
Hey, folks, welcome to Simply Trade Podcast. We are back for another one. And so we are so thankful for you. And it's, probably apropos because we're publishing this on Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to our listeners, and Lalo, to you and your family. I hope things are going well down there in Texas, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Well, thank you. And I know I said this joking around earlier when we were off camera, but go Cowboys. But anyway, I know there's some, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Memphis Titans.
Yeah, my Titans are just like, they're choking. I mean, it's like, dadgummit, everybody has hey, listen, there's some exciting games around the NFL on some things. So, that's a good thing.
So anyway, but so it is Thanksgiving. Thank you, everyone. So kind of corny and everything, but I decided, let's air this show today because this is Thanksgiving, and we're thankful for our listeners, and that's what it is. It's our listener show. So, and so we got a bigger group this time, and very diverse too. And so anyway, it's really cool. And one of them, a couple of them actually had said, "Hey, I heard your show about this and this. Can we talk a little bit about that?" And so this is open. We did not script this. We want to be very clear, and I'm sure our guests are going to say, "Yeah, I just logged in. I don't know what's going to happen." And that's literally what we're doing.
We're so appreciative. And one of the things, this is our attempt to try and get some interaction with some of our listeners. Folks, listen, we so much love our show, but y'all seem to love it. But we love putting it out. But it's kind of frustrating when we record it the way we do. It's not live, so at times it's like, we would love some interaction. So this is going to be a way to hear firsthand from listeners. And I'm sure there's going to be some folks listen, if we're not doing something right, you guys part my hair with a hatchet. All right. So just let me know what's going on. But it's like, with that, Lalo, why don't you introduce our folks since you helped pull all this all together? My goodness.
Oh, I will. So we have a panel of 4 listeners, and we'll start with ladies first, and we'll have Miss Emily Cori. If the last name sounds familiar, it's because we had her mom on the show, and so they're keeping the trade thing in the business. In the family. I'm sorry, and Emily, I believe we might have aired her show by now also, but that is she's talks a lot about green trade and etc. So anyway, but Emily, welcome back to the show, and thank you. You're also a listener. That's why we actually. And you're one of them millennials too, so we thought that would add a big aspect.
Millennials, Gen Zers, Gen Xers, whatever, one of those Gen things.
Emily, any quick? Well, I'll let everybody talk about that, and then we have Shane. Shane. I'm just gonna totally butcher this. Shane Byington, no? Byington. Okay, so we have Shane Byington, and he'll tell us in a little bit where he's from. He's also from a chemical company, and we also have Eric Hargraves, who reached out to me also on LinkedIn, and then we have Omar Garcia, also from Eric is a consultant, and Omar is also with a chemical company. So let's bring all this around, and let's just start the conversation. But Emily, a little bit about you.
A little bit about me. I'm the U.S. Compliance Manager for Woodland Group. I also support not just in the regulatory framework for import and export items, but now I also do some of the sustainability aspects of it, paying attention to the regulatory changes regarding that as well. So I am also licensed custom broker and CES certified as well. So
nice.
Good.
How about you, Shane?
Yes, I'm Shane Byington. I work at Eastman Chemical Company. I'm a trade compliance manager, support U.S., North America mostly, but also provide some global support to some of our other colleagues. I've been in the trade space for probably 10 years, 20 years before that, probably manufacturing and quality assurance.
And Eric, how about yourself?
I spent the last 20 years in the apparel and textile field, and I've just recently branched out into consulting to help companies with UFLPA, forced labor, some of the trade regulations and requirements there. It's a fascinating world right now. But before we get too deep into it, I want to say two things. Happy Thanksgiving. And Lalo, go Birds.
Oh, no.
All right. So are we talking Ravens or are we talking Eagles or what?
Eagles. I grew up outside Philadelphia, so we bleed green.
Oh, no.
Adamant. Yeah, Philly fans are that they are huge fanatics. So
yeah, that's a very solid fan base. Yeah. So and then Omar, we have Omar.
Hi, happy Thanksgiving, guys. Gowan Company, agriculture solutions company here in Yuma, Arizona. We're the winter leafy green producer, capital of the world in the winter. And I've been in the industry for 10 years with the Foreign Trade Zone and also as a compliance specialist for NAFTA area. People still call it NAFTA, right? The USMCA area.
Yeah.
They call it NAFTA 2.0 now with the USMCA and all of that. Hey, Shane, where are you at? You sound like you talk Southern.
Yes, sir. I'm in Kingsport, Tennessee, so Northeast Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. You're at one end and I'm at the other. I'm in West Tennessee. So there you go. I love it. Well, folks, I got to say, this is quite an honor. First off, thank you. Lalo and I, literally, we have talked a lot about doing these types of shows, and we spend a lot of time and wish we could do more of them. But I mean, oh man, first off, thank you so much for coming on and whatnot. So I guess, what is your thought first off about how did you come across Simply Trade podcast and what do you think? I mean, is it been good, or is it just like kind of entertaining, or is it you're actually learning something from it? Emily, let me start with you.
Had a feeling I would go first. I am a big fan of podcasts. Actually, it's something I enjoyed listening to and from work. Used to go into the criminal justice side of podcast or true crime, but then Simply Trade came around, and there are other ones out there in regards to trade compliance, different areas of supply chain. But this podcast, I feel like, is a more honest conversation instead of a type of dictated list of what's going on. And it's actually a real conversation, which I really enjoyed because you're getting true and authentic people. And that's why I really do enjoy listening to the podcast.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Eric, I'm going to jump over to you. Excuse me, Shane, for a second here. Eric, let me, from an apparel side of things, as well as, the consulting side of things. What about you? How did you come across our show?
I came across your show. We have an excellent partnership with Flexport, who's a transportation and brokerage partner. They, several of their people have connected me to your show, and I've enjoyed it ever since. And I'll echo Emily's comments. It is authentic. It's genuine. It's kind of homegrown, and I think people respect that and listen to it because of that. I think it's a really great resource for people. If you're not listening, you should start listening.
Wow, that's Lalo, man. This is humbling, man, dude. It's good. We always wonder, do we really seem to have, if we're having an impact on folks and all of that, because we're just two, regular guys just sit here trying to talk through some things and all that. Shane, what about East Tennessee side of things? And what do you think about what you've heard from us?
I've really enjoyed the content so far. I particularly enjoyed your interviews at ICPA. But I mean, I think the other topical things that you presented each week have been pretty good for me in terms of just helping deepen my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Omar, what about yourself then?
I met Lalo over at ICPA in San Diego a couple of years ago. I think last year, March, and signed up for the newsletter, and then I got to listen to you guys. And I enjoyed the Halloween one with all the experts there, the Adrian and Hansen, and just all the experience that you guys carry. Like when you had Hansen, that's like 90 years of trade experience that's free. And so I tell everybody, you want to learn something, these people are just giving it to you for free. Don't, and and they're short. And I really like that they're short. The most I think is like 50 minutes. And then the ones with the trade topics, when you guys do the news, what's in the news, those 30-minute ones, those are really good, fast and in and out type of thing. I really like that.
That Omar, you told me this because we're also doing business, by the way, prior disclosure. So we're trying to do business with his company and do some training. But aside from that, Omar told me something very interesting during that conversation. He said, whenever I'm trying to get something through people's head above me or like within my peers that don't care or even know about trade, I quickly, when I listen to an episode that resonates within our company, I tell them, you got to listen to this. And he sends them a link to it. And he tells them, you got to listen to this because this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. It's not just me saying it, so I like that you said that, Omar.
I love it. Well, let me ask you this: is like, in some of the things, of course, I get on a soapbox sometimes, and I'm dumb as a box of rocks, and I have to keep things kind of simple. But as we go through, and I start jumping on a topic or something, the things that we're coming across, I mean, and again, I don't profess to be any kind of expert. That's why we're interviewing people and all that. But the things that these topics, and as we're getting into it. And I start getting on a soapbox, and I'm not looking for a comment. I'm just looking as like, are we hitting the questions and the things that you are wanting to know? And that's what you would be asking? Or is it like, oh, Andy's full of beans again, and here he goes?
I do like that you, when you do have the guest, that you say, stop, let me ask this question. Let's go deeper in this. Because sometimes you're listening to podcasts and they just go and you want to ask, wait, what does that mean? What does that mean for us? And Andy, you go ahead and go in there and say, wait, stop here. What does that mean? Let's dig deeper in that. And that I really appreciate that.
I was going to say, I think, a sign of intelligence and expertise, Andy, is being able to take massively complex things like global trade and distilling them down to digestible moments of truth that we can use across our business. And I do like the idea of what Omar suggested earlier, saying, okay, I can use this podcast as a way to help educate others. I think it's invaluable to be able to, let's say you're leading a cross-functional team at your office and not many of them are involved in your global trade efforts, importing, exporting, manufacturing, sourcing, global logistics, whatever that might be. And you can use a segment from your show to help people understand better. You take wildly complex issues like the UFLPA and you do a series of forced labor commentary from people who are experts. And I think it's driving value.
Oh, outstanding. Shane, what about you on the Eastern Tennessee side? There's not a whole lot of, you would think, folks out there that are like, used to dealing with imports and exports and stuff like that, except for certain companies. And I get that. Has there been some things that have come across where you've been able to use some of our topics and whatever, and that's helped you in your day-to-day business or talking through to your upper management or your team?
Well, as a matter of fact, for my team, there have been some of the podcasts early in the series that I've actually forwarded to my team to have them, hey, why don't you listen to this one and let's talk afterwards to kind of debrief a little bit. So it's been very helpful in that respect. And I mean, the podcast, they're always archived, so you can go back and revisit any topic at any time. So that's pretty helpful too.
Emily, what about you? And you're hitting into several different things. Obviously, in talking, obviously we had you on the grain trade, but I mean, you're covering quite a few different. You're wearing a lot of different types of hats, and the scenario. Would you consider yourself what is it, a Gen Xer or Gen Y or whatever? I always get them all mixed up.
Yeah. So I'm actually in the millennial area. So the podcast has actually been very helpful for me for learning from those that have been in the industry for years on end and have seen different scenarios of different shipment issues, supply chain issues, and how it's grown since then. So it really has helped me, and also growing my team, just like everybody else said, pinning different podcasts of yours and discussing them further, having people learn exactly what, the forced labor topic is, where it relates to potentially our business in future, and, getting a better understanding of what everybody is going through too, and not feeling alone. I mean, that's really helpful to me as well, because I do wear a lot of hats and sometimes it can be really overwhelming, but knowing that there are resources, especially Simply Trade, it's been extremely helpful.
Outstanding. Are there any topics in particular you'd love us to kind of dive into a little bit more, or do something a little differently? I mean, how could we be more effective? And especially if you're forwarding our shows up to other folks, is there anything that we could do that would, maybe make the point a little bit more? I mean, Omar, you said it, and Eric is the same thing, is that, we stop so far and I'm going, hey, wait a minute, what's that nugget of knowledge I need, or what's the action? But, are there any topics or anything we can do that you would love to see us do better with?
I did notice you had a Spanish one time or twice, and I need to go back, and I just saw the titles on it, but I can forward those to my counterparts in Mexico, down in South America. So those were helpful, and I don't know how much of viewership you got, but those could be helpful.
Well, and we've talked a little bit about trying to expand into more Spanish speaking on some topics, so that's a good point.
I think it would be valuable to do a little mini series on, I don't know what percentage of the audience or listenership is import side of things in the supply chain, but doing a duty avoidance series on things like first sale for export and FTZs, a duty deferral program, and the de minimis program, maybe having a warehouse on the other side of Mexico. Some of the duty avoidance strategies that people could implement to end up saving their organization millions of dollars annually.
And with that, let me stop for just a second. When we're saying duty avoidance, that doesn't mean that somebody's doing something nefarious here. It means that it is a legal effort to say, is there a way to import your goods in and minimize the amount of duties and taxes you're paying? That is a legal scenario. Where the problem is some folks look at it, do the research, and find out, no, you can't really do something like, you have to import it, and you have to do certain things, and then they take, illegal actions to try and circumvent that, and that's not good. But, the duty avoidance is a good strategy.
I was just going to say maybe along those lines of maybe some type of 101s for, you talk in your podcast and explain different subject matters that people discuss, FTZs, e-commerce, what they mean in the podcast, but maybe small segments of 101s regarding, import or what de minimis means, what an ACCN is, the different types, ITAR regulations. That might be useful, especially for those just getting into the trade or supply chain. Learning a little bit more might be helpful for them as well.
Yeah, doing more of a basic level type scenario in some of these things, and all like, that's good. Shane, how about you?
Well, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Cori said, because I was going to say the EAR, Export Administration Regulations, certainly USML. I think there's space there, where people can learn more from the two of you and other guests that you have on the show.
Yeah, we have we have like two people that are like very active in that area. That's funny that you say that, Shane. But here's our challenge here on the podcast is that they're so active and so busy that sometimes it's hard to get them on. But yeah, I agree. We've identified certain things like that, that are incredibly complex, and we want to bring it down to a understandable level. I always say, explain it to me like if I was a 10-year-old. I'd like to know what the heck that is. And so yeah, that's a good point, Shane. And I'm going to push on them a little bit more and see if we can get them here at the beginning of the new year or something. So.
Well, one of the things too that we would like to do is try and get more actual practitioners, if you will. I mean, there's there's been a lot of guests that have been, with a lot of legal firms and things and service providers, is trying to get somebody to come on and talk in general, not to divulge company secrets. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, how do you set up your team? How do you keep them motivated? How do you, they're overwhelmed and those kinds of things. And that's one of the things we would love to try and get with and all. Let me ask this question though about, and again, we made jest with it, talking about, Emily, you were talking about the green trade, and I'm one that, I'm all for sustainability. I'm all for, trying to do things with renewable energy if it makes sense. But I'm also one that are going, if it costs you 10 times more or 5 times more than your regular, is like, go pound sand. I got to make a profit in my business. So it's like having discussions like that where we're actually being able to debate issues and all that. Would you like to see more of that, or has that been good, or it make you think? I mean, Emily, I kind of pushed back on you a little bit there. I know it's like, so, hit me between the eyes here. I mean, it's like, it's obviously not a thing where I'm making it personal. I'm making it a deal like, oh, come on. That's just like, go pound sand, whatever. So
you're making it more realistic when you're debating it because you're giving your honest feedback, not what people want to hear. I mean, I'm all for it. And you, on the other hand, just said you'd rather have them pound sand in certain scenarios, which it makes sense. It's just translating it for everybody to understand based on where they're coming from with it and making it digestible for everybody. But that's where debates are really wonderful because you can take the time to challenge each other into figuring out a good translation, because sometimes people don't hear it on the first go. Sometimes it's the third time you say it that it actually sticks. So I definitely appreciate the debates because it's more genuine, like I had mentioned before, for the whole podcast.
Well, and I'm open to especially getting challenged. Like, all right, I'll take a position. Sometimes I take a position just to see if I can't spark something, and it's good conversation. But listen, I'm dumb as a box of rocks. So it's like, tell me, maybe I'm not getting it. Here we go. So,
sure. I was just going to say, Emily, you're freaking brilliant. I love sparking debate. I think it helps. In my industry, we've gone from, PET, virgin polyester, essentially, and our PET has become the whole game, recycled polyester. Now there are projections where we're actually going to run out of plastic bottles for recycled polyester because everybody's using our PET in everything they possibly can. And the recyclers are hoarding the material to make what they want to make, which optimizes their profit. But it never would have happened if we didn't have debate, if we didn't fight for it. Now, in our industry, we have this amazing new technology from a company that's called Ciclo Yarns, where it will actually biodegrade polyester fiber in a landfill. So if you use recycled polyester, right, you're keeping bottles in circulation out of the ocean, you're cleaning up the world, but eventually somebody's going to discard that recycled shirt, right? So you're really only delaying it. But as the debate continued, now we have scientists who are coming up with organisms that will actually help the biodegradation of polyester in a landfill from 50 years down to 3 to 5 years. And that, it could be virgin poly or recycled poly. And that would not have happened had people not optimized their supply chain to create value in sustainability. Because, yeah, it's expensive. It was expensive when it started. But as it normalizes and reaches economies of scale, it fuels further innovation, which helps us and helps us and helps us.
Let me ask you, in East Tennessee, are there scenarios, Shane, where as you're talking through, and I'm going to ask the same thing there, Omar, in Arizona, because the difference is there geographically. Obviously, you guys are dealing with chemicals. There's the for a wide range of different things. I get it. But as you're dealing with these things and you're looking at what you're dealing with, your own team, do they sometimes are looking in just what they're seeing and they're not really educating themselves on what's happening from an international trade and things of that nature and all that? Are there things that you're able to maybe expand them when you're sharing our show or you're talking through and empowering them and giving you maybe nuggets of knowledge to share with them that will expand them, stimulate them to think for their own?
Yeah, so in my area, my team, we have some operations in the free trade agreement realm. So, I mean, it's not just U.S. facing agreements. Obviously, we're providing some support to other areas, other regions in the world. We've also, got some activity in regulated materials. So we're talking about DEA, we're talking about dual use and harmonized tariff classification. So yes, I mean, we are operating with what comes through our inbox each day, but we're also, looking for any kind of training, any kind of other information outside that can help leverage our position or help our understanding.
Omar, so with you being in a border state, do you see where people generally in your community are more, let's say, cross-border savvy, or is it a case where, they have their blinders on, they just dealing with their own little life, or what?
Yeah, mainly they deal with their day-to-day and they don't see the big picture. We do trade newsletters from different people, so I'll get them from the import team. It's like, oh, look at this, and I'll send them the same kind of material. But I also sit them down for webinars. I'll do once a month. I'll sit them down, get a room, and put it on the big screen and have them watch it and be part of their training, log sheet for the year. They log it in that they watched it. And I think it, like I said, with Lalo, it's hearing it from somebody else. It resonates where if I tell them or send them an email, it's not the same. So, but here in Yuma, we're all international. We have our foreign trade zone. So it comes from Long Beach usually. So we don't do much cross-border. Our stuff's mainly for manufacturing.
Outstanding. Have y'all had anybody by chance that when you're listening to our show, that has not necessarily been in the trade, they're not in compliance or logistics or transportation, but seems to be listening or picking up on some things from our show or enjoyed listening to us?
I can't think of anybody outside of trade.
We're a special breed.
Yeah. Well, it is generally seen. There's somebody that we know from the East Coast that their partner was in the car with them when they were listening to it, and so they were like, "Hey, what's going on with Andy and Lalo?" Because it's like, and they're not even in the trade, but they enjoyed listening to it. So it's like, love them to death, and I've actually, when we go to some of the conferences, it's been we don't get to do very many public appearances. So when we do, it's always a lot of fun, some of the feedback we get. So really appreciate everybody. So.
And Shane, you said it earlier. So that's something we've been kind of almost trying to revisit for next year, for 2024, is the conference appearances that we have. We definitely want to be there, and we are going to be there. But we're thinking maybe it's overdone. Like hearing from people. Like we basically are doing a man on the street. That's basically what we're doing, and we're going around and asking people how the conference is and everything. I mean, we're thinking that the listeners are now feeling like, oh, same old, same old. I already know that they're there. They enjoy it. They promote the conference. You got to be here. I mean, other than creating that fear of missing out, that FOMO for not going. I mean, do you feel, or any of you, do y'all feel like, oh, there's that episode again, I'll skip it? You know what I mean? Or are you like me? And I'm self-admitted people watcher. I'm like, I love to listen to and hear and see people what they're doing. I just sit back. I can sit back for hours and like at a mall or at a beach and just see whatever and kind of invent stories of people. Hey, look, I think that person got mad because they didn't, you know what I mean? That's just me. I mean, that I can do that for hours. I guess as I'm getting older, maybe that's why. But anyway, is that like maybe the same feeling now that you're getting, or like, yeah, I don't know, just kind of want to know where we're going with that, because we're trying to plan 2024 now on how we're going to approach those things.
I think the work that you all do at the ICPA conferences, I think it's invaluable, really. I mean, everyone's experience is going to be different regarding, whatever track they're taking, whatever seminar they're attending. So whatever nugget that they find, they can communicate to you, and you can share it with the podcast.
Cool. So one of the approaches is that we're going to try to do kind of what we're doing with you all. We just need to coordinate with the conference and get a room and do a roundtable, and just Andy and I sit up front, and just tell everybody in the audience, hey, come over here, tell us a little bit more about this, so instead of doing like I said, like the man on the street. So that's just something we're working on, and I think that might actually be, like a roundtable looking scenario like we're doing right now. So, but anyway, so that's more to come. Hopefully we can get that done for the next conference we're going to is in March for in San Diego for ICPA. That's our annual conference. So depending on how that goes, we may or may not do that. But anyway, just kind of curious about that.
Well, and the conferences have to allow us to do that. But we're looking at recording literally a panel during the conference, and either broadcasting it live or very quickly after that, and go ahead and upload that so you guys can see it on the different venues of LinkedIn, X, Facebook, whatever, and all that. Would that be something that would be of interest to, and kind of a live show?
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting. And if you did different subjects of roundtable, so you had a couple different roundtables while you were there, regarding EAR, for example, and have a couple people for that, then potentially having another round of people from completely different areas debating another topic as well. I feel like that would be beneficial for a lot of people, including myself. I go to the conferences, once or twice a year and get to debate these things with folks, but it's not often enough. And doing those roundtables in different scenarios, I think would be very beneficial for myself as well as others.
I know it's like, during the conferences on the side table, sometimes I wish we had microphones going, because we would ensue into a discussion. And sometimes it would be a really good discussion. I don't even say it would be a debate, but I mean, there would be different views on different topics of what you should or shouldn't do. And it's like, man, that was some rich stuff. And it would be like during lunch or, on the breaks and all that kind of stuff. And trying to figure out a way that we can literally show that recorded and publish all that kind of stuff at the same time would be excellent. So, well,
I was going to say how I am curious. I forgot. I do want to get this question in. So I am curious. So we have had people on the show, of course, that are consultants, software people, and we even had other podcast hosts here on our show. I guess other than the effect that you guys have on the advice, or not advice, but information that is provided by our guests, have any of you had any action? Like recently we had Dooner. I don't know if y'all remember, or in fact, Dooner it's really close to Shane there in Eastern Tennessee. He has a really fun podcast and he does it live. I mean, that's something that I don't know if we would ever do that, but it hits live Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But his is like our version, but in the logistics and trucking and freight forwarding part. Like have what you have heard, not just his show, but like, or any show, but like products or services. Have y'all like piqued your curiosity and gone and seen like what they might do and how they may help you, like, and reached out privately, to them or not or whatever? I don't know.
I certainly have with others around the industry. I mentioned Flexport earlier, and I think they do an excellent job of publishing similar to what Emily was saying, kind of 101 courses on current issues. And they'll host a panel of experts, and you get this really rich educational content from them. What I'm hearing is today, there's this level of authenticity that we get from you guys that is like sort of man on the street, like you said. Jack Welch used to say, I would host all of these town hall meetings with all my employees and get all these ideas. And I go to the bar afterward with 3 of them, and I get more information at the bar than I would in the town hall, right? So there is something like about this sort of intimate, authentic, inspiring content. But there's also something to the expert panel. And I'm hearing today, a lot of us are using your content for educational purposes. So maybe there's somewhere where you kind of use both formats to continue to help educate the world around us. I think it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, and I after when Hanson was there or your guest, I'll go to their websites and I'll go to their education site where they have some newsletters or webinars, and I'll watch those there as well, because there's so much out there for us to reference. The people just it's free, and this show and all those webinars on Flexport, on Start, I think is the one I go to a lot. YouTube, you can YouTube all your guests, and they have videos up there as well. So I have done that.
Just want to hear or see if any one of you have, whether it's a specific topic that we've talked about that you might want to talk about, or anything on the show. The show, I think we've exhausted a lot of that. I mean, if you want to talk about green, I know Eric is a lot into forced labor. I mean, like, how do you any of you want to debate, or not debate, but, just discuss something about that further? I mean, we're open to anything. I just want to get some last words from all of you.
Forced labor, you've done a great job already. You've had the little mini series, a lot of commentary around it. Later on today at 1:30, I have a call with Ronnie Hong, who is special advisor to the UN regarding forced labor. And she herself was, unfortunately, when she was 7 years old, abducted into forced labor and slave labor. And she has a very, very compelling story. And she's working to grow a certification for factory operations around the world, not just apparel and textiles, but called the Freedom Seal. And Freedom Seal is a certification similar to RAP that you could go and you could, follow this protocol and be approved as your supply chain being devoid of forced labor on any level. And having a guest like Ronnie on the show would be, right now, especially with, the law is a year and a half old, and Customs is trying to ramp up the number of employees it has to be able to actually do the assessments and the detentions. And right now, it's a law that just has, it's almost unenforceable because there's not enough resource to enforce it. She would be a tremendous, valuable resource for y'all to talk with and continue that conversation.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, like, along the lines of what Eric just said, for folks that have dealt with different audits directly, whether it be a customs audit, BIS, OFAC, getting some people that have actually gone through that process and really discussed those, I think would be beneficial to those that either have never gone through a process or are in the process of doing it right now. That might be really beneficial. I personally would love that. And also, I would love to see more of the green trade items because it's becoming more and more relevant to regulatory changes as we've seen recently. And it's definitely a really big subject right now. So even making a mini series of it would be really beneficial, I think, to everybody in supply chain and trade compliance communities.
Yeah, taking it further to say what green trade specifically, and there's green trade is a big umbrella. It's like breaking it down into smaller bits.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've always said this on the show. I mean, like it or not, it's something that we need to deal with anyway right now. You know, the EU has it, and I mean, if you're going to ship something to the EU and you're not adhering to that, I mean, too bad. I mean, you're going to have to either deal with it or get out, you know, not sell there, right? I guess. So anyway, but yeah, it's good or bad, you still need to deal with it. So
I would also love to see a show sort of just dedicated to trade in general. And here's why. I think the common thread of everything we're talking about is somebody has something of value that somebody else wants to give value for. And you have this exchange that recognizes your humanity produced something valuable, and I'm willing to give you something valuable to get it. And I think when trade is done well across civilizations, it's the rising tide that lifts all boats.
Yeah, you know what? To your point, is when you stimulate trade, what are the impacts of that, of both on the from the origin and the destination side? Is what I'm hearing from you. Okay.
I think about things that are near and dear to my heart. So I think about things like, harmonized tariff classification. I mean, you call it something in the United States, but if you're shipping it to any country in Europe, it's going to import possibly under a different tariff code. And likewise for just about any other country. So, plugging your product into another country's tariff nomenclature is always something that can be a bit of a challenge. And then when you're talking about the logistics side of it, shipping, you're talking about Incoterms and things like that. And I know you guys have talked about Incoterms before, but it's never too much information.
Well, and the practicality of breaking down an Incoterms, how's it used? What, who should be paying the transportation? Who should be paying the duties and taxes and clearance? When's the risk? And actually breaking that down a little bit better. And quite frankly, I got to tell you, so often I see a disconnect between the bill of lading and the commercial invoice, is that the bill of lading may not be filled out correctly compared to the commercial invoice and the Incoterm that's being utilized. So it's like, it makes a big difference. So all that being synchronized, that's a good point. Omar, how about yourself, sir?
I really enjoyed when you have people with stories. Renee last week, when she was talking about her past work experiences at Hansen, and Adrienne, when she was talking about in the horror, maybe once a month do a, spooky story day, and just talk about, because even though they're not in our industry, they're still customs, it's still EPA, it's still all the PGAs. So it's at the end of the day, it's still the same thing, even though we're in chemicals or, whatever industry you're at, it's still the same thing. But hearing those stories really opens your ears, and that's when I stop and it's like, okay, wait, let me listen to this part of it, because it's important, because somebody went through something like Emily was saying, going through an audit, going through an FTA audit, they're no fun. Going through a FAA audit, they're no fun either. So it's learning from people's past experiences is really important to me.
Any last words from everybody? Go through Shane. How about yourself? Any last words from you?
Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving.
All right.
Thank you, Shane.
Omar?
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you guys for your time. I know it takes a lot of time to do this stuff, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, I thank you so much for having me on the podcast twice now, and I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, many thanks. I'll echo everyone else's words. It was a wonderful experience and completely enjoyable, and I look forward to listening. And lastly, Lalo, go Birds.
Okay. Darn it. Okay.
He got you. I love it. Hey, folks, happy Thanksgiving. We love our audience. And listen, hopefully, again, for the Simply Trade podcast and our crew and our folks is that you gain that nugget of knowledge or identify the action you should take on certain things. We have a great group here today. We're so appreciative of that. Please share our show. Please like us. Please connect with us on LinkedIn, especially, and with all of that, because we are achieving new milestones as our listenership goes out there, and that really helps us continue on with this kind of a show. Lalo, I'll turn it off for you with our last, but again, I say happy Thanksgiving.
Well, same here. Thank you all. And as the show indicates, it is the thank you to all our audience and especially those that showed up here on our roundtable. Thank you so much. And really, that's it. I hope your 2023, the rest of it goes very well, and kick off 2024 with a bang as well. So thank you all. And we'll be connecting. Hopefully we'll see you at conferences or something in person. And we'll definitely take some of your ideas and put them into place. So thank you all. So have a good one and happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com or you can DM us on Twitter at SimplyTradePod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.